Hello, everyone. Um, I think we can slowly start. Welcome to the second webinar in this series of on the topic of Smart Readiness Indicator under the SRI-ENACT project. Today, we will guide you through the policy framework and national context for Smart Readiness Indicator within our project. And we prepared a short introduction and then national contexts of each pilot country within our project. I hope that you can hear me and that you will have the opportunity to learn something about the Smart Readiness Indicator. So for the start, I will give you short overview of the policy framework in around 10 minutes, very shortly, and then our partners on the project will give you the current state regarding the national context of each country, and we will wrap up with a short Q&A session. So to start with, about the policy framework, I've decided to give you a short recap of methodology very shortly. For those who do not know about Smart Readiness Indicator methodology, actually this indicator assesses the buildings based on their capacity to satisfy three key functionalities detailed into seven impact criteria. So those three key functionalities are optimize energy efficiency and overall in-use performance, ability to adapt the operation of the buildings to the needs of the occupants, and to adapt the signals from the grid in terms of energy flexibility. This calculation is actually based on assessing 9 technical domains. You can see them on the screen. I will not go through those. So the methodology basically goes through these domains and assess the buildings main on these criteria and in these three key functionalities. How does it look like in practice? So assessors during the calculations considers various functionality levels for each smart ready service. There is a smart service catalog that you use when you evaluate the buildings, and then all the scoring is aggregated into a single score. Below, you can just see how it can look like. It's not the official outlook, but how it looks like when you get the results through this calculation and evaluation. So that's basically a short recap because we had a very detailed first webinar on methodology and definition and everything else. So I will just now go to the purpose of the Smart Readiness Indicator. So as you all know, I do not have to go into details about this, that the EU promotes the renovation of buildings, but those should in the long term include also the implementation of smart technologies. These smart technologies can improve not only energy efficiency, which was mostly in the focus for the last decade, but also the comfort, air quality. It can help a lot with the maintenance in terms of reducing the maintenance costs, doing the maintenance in the right time when it is needed, and etc. Also, these smart technologies can hugely contribute to the energy flexibility. One, I would say, hot topic, and it will be definitely more and more important topic in the future, where the buildings, due to their consumption, which is relatively large, will play an important role in the energy system in terms of demand response, in terms of actually allowing the system to integrate more renewable energy sources. So with these technologies, we will be able to, for instance, use the battery on site in the building, export electricity from the PVs, use the EV chargers, and so on. So the Smart Readiness Indicator should give us the overview how to approach to this. That's why the EU developed this methodology. in terms of making the attempt to harmonize the approach in all member states, just as we had for energy performance certificates. The same analogy is here, that we on the EU level have a harmonized approach, that we have the common ground with as little as possible differences. Why is this important? Why is it important to have the harmonized approach? Well, it's simple. This actually aims to provide a common language for all relevant stakeholders, either owners or representatives of public sector or financial sector, whatever. To provide a common language, to be able to discuss how to make our buildings smarter and how to effectively evaluate the current state and the potential state of our buildings in terms of smart technologies, because this is something new that is coming, and we will definitely need to incorporate it. So where actually does Smart Readiness Indicator comes from? Well, there is a directive, as you all know, the EPBD and the Energy Efficiency Directive, and those two emphasize the integration of smart technologies in the buildings and mandates the development of the optional schemes on the EU level for rating the smart readiness of the buildings, just as we the EPCs, the common ground, the evaluation, those energy classes. Here, it's a similar approach of how to evaluate each building in terms of smart readiness. Based on this, I would say top, the EU Commission produced two regulations. The first one is delegated regulation. The second one is implementing regulation. The first one actually established the detailed technical modalities for the effective implementation. So it gives out the basic methodology. It gives out how the assessments should be made, which all the functionalities are covered, and so on. While the other one provides the templates for the assessments, as you saw in previous slides, how the results can look like, but also deals with the certification. And this is very important as well, because it emphasizes the standardized approach across the EU level, with the aim of not creating very much differences between the countries. In the other terms, the Smart Readiness Indicator and this whole topic started back in 2017, when this SRI was introduced and into the EPD, and throughout the years it was the matter of developing the methodology, doing the studies, doing the stakeholders consultations, up until last year, when the revision of EPBD took place, where a Smart Readiness Indicator was strengthened. And a few years before that, the test phases were triggered by certain member states, and I will talk about those in next slides. What is important to emphasize is that according to the current plans, from the 2027, June 2027, there will be a mandatory use of this indicator for a larger tertiary buildings, but I will also catch up on that. So regarding the official testing phase, as I mentioned, there is a possibility to do it, and it is important for member states. It's a unique opportunity to prepare the ground for its large-scale implementation. And actually, through this testing phase, you can check the methodology, you can get familiar with it, identify the needs for the adaptations, and to clarify the relations between the Smart Readiness Indicator and EPCs. In any case, with or without the official testing, member states will have to transpose this new delegating act once when it will be adopted in 2027. So they will need to transpose it into their legislation for the buildings above 290 kilowatts of HVAC systems. So all the buildings that will have this larger system will need to have SRI integrated. So from our perspective, it is better now to test it than to and get familiar with it than to later, once when it is official, that each country, each ministry, and so on needs to adapt it in rush. So a slide on how to actually enter this testing phase, which it's pretty simple. You need to identify the main aspects of testing phase. You need to see which activities you will plan, which type of buildings you will target, which zones you will include, because some countries have different geographical zones. You need to see the duration of the test phase and see the aspects that you want to test. You do not have to test the whole methodology. You can focus only on valuation, or you can add how the trainings will be solved, how the process of certifications will be solved, and different countries opted out for different approaches. Step 2 is to communicate that with the European Commission. So once when you decided everything about step 1, you need to inform the DG Energy about intentions, and then you actually support your test phase either through the EU-related projects such as this one, SRI-ENACT, or through the official support team. To finalize, there is a few slides about the current status, but our partners will give you more information. This is the current state of the testing phase. So in total, 14 countries are in the testing phase. First, we started with Austria, Denmark, Czech Republic, and France. Now, recently, we had 6 countries joining in 2024. So each country is in the official testing phase, which means that throughout this process, they will have the answers of how this SRI methodology and this mentioned EU legislation needs to be transposed and adapted on the national level. To have some more information, here on the left side, you can see that different countries did a different approach. Some of those used the EU projects, such as this one, SRI-ENACT or SRI to Market, or other projects, Easy SRI, and so on. While some other countries, even before the start of this EU project, such as Denmark, France, and so on, did their individual testing without any EU project, and both approaches are fine. Based on this October this year, the European Commission said that they collected data from 11 member states. Around 300 buildings were tested. 30 assessors were trained, and around 130 certificates were issued. So we are progressing. Each member country is progressing, and they are going towards the finalization of how their national context should look like. Before handing out to the other partners, just to give an overview of what the national context actually means. So on one hand, there is a mandatory, there is a thing that the mandatory and optional domains that you saw in the first slide must be determined. So you need to see and determine on the country level which domains needs to be included as a mandatory and as an optional domains. And then throughout this testing phase, you can check if this generic methodology provided by the Commission is okay, or you need to modify it, and that's also okay. That's the right of each member state in terms of changing the weighting factors for the technical domains, for the functionalities, and so on. In terms of naming the SRI classes, some countries has from A to G, where, for instance, France has from A+++ to D. There is also a matter of certification, if the certificate will be issued and if it is mandatory or not, how it will look like. So that's all a matter of this national context and the adaptation. Lastly, a big topic right now is who can actually be the assessor. Is it only the people who are also trained for energy performance certificate, or we should open it for more people? Which background should they have, and so on? But as I said, that's that's the sole purpose of this testing phase, and each country opted out for different approaches. So now I will give the floor to the partners who will in few minutes present the current state of the national context in our piloting countries. Yeah. So to start with, we have the first one is Austrian case. So I will give the floor to our colleague Elena to give some insights.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and it's a pleasure to start today's session, where we're going to dive over the next couple of minutes into Austria's progress with the Smart Readiness Indicator. And I'm going to present you some of the key insights in the next step in Austria. Essentially, the main contributors to the SRI in Austria have been at the national level, the Federal Ministry for Climate Action, or BMK, and the Austrian Institute of Construction Engineering. They have been leading the way from the beginning. Austria has been one of the pioneers with SRI piloting in order to ensure that the initiatives that the EU has are aligned with Austria's policies and Austria's priorities. As Marco has mentioned previously, on the EU side, we have ongoing in Austria projects like SRI-ENACT, where my company, Blueprint Energy Solutions, is the pilot leader for the nationwide testing. And in addition to that, we have projects like Easy SRI that have provided some valuable methods and tools, and also SRI to market. That are running in parallel with two national projects, SRI Demo and SRI Flex, in order to really merge or bring together the methodology and the intention behind this EU initiative together with the national basis. So because we have so many projects running in parallel, and we started with both the EU and national projects a while ago, regular exchanges are organized at the national level between these two different stakeholder groups. And they were very instrumental in order to keep track of both, as I mentioned, national goals with the directives. With the purpose to be really pragmatic, to build a solid practical framework that's going to benefit Austria under the EU strategy. So, as I mentioned, the key findings are something that has been taking place for a while, given that Austria started years previously. During this pilot phase, the focus that we had was mostly on larger non-residential buildings. These were predominantly offices, mixed-use spaces, public buildings. And so far, which is not surprising, the SRI score has been around 22%. That really highlights the limited use of smart technologies in older buildings. And domains like cooling systems and electric vehicle charging, these were rarely present so far, which kept the scores that we've had in the preliminary testing rather low. But of course, this is where our Austrian Empire history plays a part, because our country has inherited really a wealth of very beautiful but very aging building stock. And many of these older buildings are simply not equipped with modern smart technologies. But the good news is that newer office buildings that have advanced automation systems, they scored much higher, proving what's possible. And I can share that actually the first two buildings that we had tested were smart green buildings in areas around Vienna. So these findings actually emphasize primarily the need for targeted retrofit programs in order to upgrade the older properties of the buildings that we have, with often mandatory requirement to preserve their historical relevance and charm. So let me say a couple of words about implementation barriers in Austria. In order to implement SRI here, so bring down the idea and strategy down to the physical level, it has faced several challenges. So I would say the first and the most important one was that this assessment process can be quite detailed, can be quite time-consuming in spite of all of the tools that we have developed as part of SRI-ENACT. So especially in buildings where there are complex systems installed, it requires a lot of expertise. Sometimes we rely on the energy performance certificate auditors, but actually these can require additional training that we have provided. Second point is that Austria has still been working on finalizing the national SRI framework, because we have our own, I would say, gravitating more towards insights into flexibility, providing flexibility to the grid. More detailed reporting from these pilot projects, all of them, including our further testing, is expected next year. So this will guide the research forward. And I would say the last one would be Austria's regulatory landscape is already quite crowded. And since SRI is not mandatory yet, many stakeholders are seeing it as a sort of an added burden rather than an opportunity. Some have actually realized its opportunity, but especially in case of retrofit buildings, it is perceived as such. So these barriers, they essentially highlight the need to simplify and refine this framework so that it's both practical and valuable, or perceived as valuable to begin with, for everyone involved. So what are the opportunities and then feedback? In terms of building owners, they appreciate how the SRI helps map the value of their properties. That's a very big selling point in terms of smartness, which is very important for the clients today. It also acts as a roadmap to identify cost-effective retrofitting opportunities that further encourage investments and modernization. For the grid operators, they are seeing the benefits. I would say they're all very interested in participating seminars. However, on their agenda, especially with the DSOs, distribution system operators, they would very much like any kind of additional insights to identify local flexibility and how to better forecast distributed energy sources. So the grid operators have been responding positively. So in terms of next steps and proposals, we are working on proposals to improve the SRI framework from our end at the national and the EU level. And essentially, the main focus is simplifying the assessment process in order to make it quicker, less complex, especially for older buildings with limited smart technology. Then another key priority is identifying metrics and trying to better showcase buildings' flexibility, like the ability to shift energy loads or storage facilities. Improving interoperability between building systems and the grid is also very important, very high on the list, particularly in the buildings where there are electric vehicle charging and renewable systems implemented, which we do have a lot on rooftops and often as part of the buildings. So essentially, these are the proposals in progress, and let me finalize this Austrian presentation now. Thank you very much. So we've had strong support from public institutions, and we have really good interaction with the stakeholders. So this will further on be necessary to continue our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, for this lovely insight. Now, after seeing the country that entered this testing phase 3 years ago, we will shift out to the country that entered tested phase this year. So I will give the floor to Bulgarian partners, Angel, to give us more insights about the situation in Bulgaria. So please.
Thank you, Marco. So I'm going to briefly present what is going on at the policy level with SRI introduction in Bulgaria. What is the existing what is the existing legal and regulatory framework in Bulgaria? It is still quite fragmented and limited. There is almost nothing related to SRI. The main legal requirements concern the use of automated systems for control and monitoring. But anyway, these are a good basis for SRI introduction into the national regulations and practice. And there are three government authorities in charge of SRI related topics. These are the Ministry of Energy, Sustainable Energy Development Agency, and the Ministry of Regional Development and Public Works. At the moment, all of them are interested, motivated, and expected to lead the adaptation and implementation of the topic in the regulatory documents. A very important role for the introduction of SRI has the Bulgarian liaison group established by SRI-ENACT project. It involved not only the three authorities mentioned above, but all relevant stakeholders in the country. And through meetings to discuss different SRI-related issues, it made several important conclusions. Maybe the main one is that actually SRI is something quite easy to implement both in the theory, the legislation and practice. It doesn't require any substantial change. So there is nothing to be scared of. It is a minor effort. Namely, it is considered as a small supplement and upgrade to the process and existing practices in design and energy efficiency renovation of buildings. The adapted SRI assessment methodology can be integrated easily into the existing regulatory framework for energy efficiency in buildings without conflict. We proved that it requires only minor effort to make this assessment. And finally, the SRI certificate may be just an appendix or even part of the EPB certificate of the building. So it is, fortunately, they concluded it's something easy and they were quite motivated to proceed with this. Another conclusion is in line with the new European requirements that SRI can be mandatory for non-residential buildings and at least now voluntary for residential buildings. Finally, the need of training was emphasized. Mainly the professional energy auditors need to be trained because we concluded that these are in the best position to become the SRI auditors. Their knowledge need to be upgraded with the SRI related topic. But also training of all other stakeholders in the value chain is needed, including chambers of engineers and architects, technical universities, companies providing services in the field of technologies for intelligent management of building systems, ESCOs, companies for maintenance of buildings and their technical systems, state and municipal experts, building owners, and house managers, and so on. The Ministry of Energy notified the Commission this year, as Marco mentioned, about the official start of SRI test phase, thanks to the efforts of SRI-ENACT and Smart Square projects. And I can share some success factors, how we motivated the government to start the test phase, but not only to start the test phase, but how they are motivated to further introduce SRI in the legislation and practice. One of the driving forces was the European SRI regulations and the expectations for mandatory SRI. Next is that the practical testing of the methodology provides an objective basis for future decisions. Next is that the support provided by the European SRI platform is quite useful. For example, all countries that initiated test phase can participate in the working group 1 discussions of this platform and exchange experiences among themselves. Also, countries can request advice by the platform. Then a success factor was that we engaged the trained SRI auditors. They were trained within our project. And of course, the good contacts with the relevant ministry experts always help. In conclusion, I can say that our liaison group members are quite motivated to help with the adaptation and integration of SRI into the legislation and practice. And that was short about Bulgaria. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel, for the overview in Bulgaria. After Austria and Bulgaria, we will move to Croatia to see the situation there. So I will give the floor to my colleague Nenad to give us some more insights. Please, Nenad.
Thank you very much, Marco. Let me see. Okay, the slide is here. So just in brief and in a few minutes, I will tell you some major points about policy framework and national context of the SRI in Croatia. We are preparing recommendations for the current national legal framework to enable the most efficient integration of the SRI methodology into the legislation of Republic of Croatia. So in this process, jointly with the ministry, we are also bringing together all other relevant stakeholders, such chambers of civil, mechanical, electrical, and architectural engineers, technical universities, experts, and I will point Energy Institute Heroe Požar with Street to Market EU project under the LIFE program addressing a similar topic. So far, the common attitude of all involved stakeholders is that the integration of the SRI methodology should be implemented through the existing regulatory framework in Croatia for energy certification of the buildings. Additionally, I can say that the use of SRI, including all the goals of its implementation, is jointly recognized in Croatia as an effective policy instrument for achieving the objectives of national energy and climate policy. So at the moment, Ministry has included the implementation of SRI in the Croatia Integrated National Energy and Climate Plan for the period until 2030. So as the project going to its end, we are facing important and crucial discussions and activities with the Ministry regarding the implementation of the SRI methodology in alignment with national needs. This effort encounters various challenges, such as scalability in SRI methodology, for example, ratios and significance of weighting factors, etc. We are also facing a lack of expertise in this SRI domain, and of course, future capital expenses. So we are preparing the final policy event with the ministry and all involved stakeholders at the national level in the first quarter of the next year. So for discussion, we developed and prepared several business model financing schemes to support the national level implementation. For example, they will include co-financing of SRI assessments, tax reliefs for buildings with high SRI scores, maybe financing SRI implementation through energy renovation of building of public sector, etc. So the plan is also to present an analysis and results of the pilot phase of SRI assessments in Croatia through our project, and also to second Street to Market project, to review and open questions with the ministry and other key stakeholders about establishment of a system and training program for SRI assessors in Croatia, acceptance of training and certificates through our EU project, etc. So all these topics already have been actively communicated within the ministry and our group. So we also provisionally agreed that the training of SRI assessors should be part of the existing training program for building energy certification in Croatia. Also, SRI assessors probably should be professionals, engineers in the fields of electrical and mechanical engineering. We also, let's say, agreed that the certificates from SRI-ENACT and SRI to Market project should be acknowledged in some way. So as a conclusion, I will say that overall the ministry and all stakeholders demonstrated a promising level of understanding and support for addressing these open issues. So in this regard, we remain optimistic about completing the project and going to the next phase of implementing the SRI in Croatia. Just as a final thought, at the moment we are in testing phase for buildings in Croatia. So far we have assessed around both in two projects over 100 buildings. So these results and more information about key conclusions from this we will give you in next webinar. So I think I will just stop right here. Marko, going back to you.
Thank you, Nenad, for the overview in Croatia. We are moving on to the next country, also one that is in the testing phase since 2021, that is Czech Republic. So please, Michal, the floor is yours to give us insights from your country.
Thank you. I will talk briefly about the situation in the Czech Republic, about the SRI situation in the Czech Republic. We had a pilot started in 2021, but there were only few buildings assessed, and a major pilot would be our project. We have started with co-creation process. It was very important that the Ministry of Industry and Trade was involved in this process. We have talked to dozens of experts and stakeholders. The general attitude towards SRI is neutral, or they usually want it to be SRI as a market-based solution, preferably not the part of the energy performance certificate. We have arranged 2 info days, and we have presented SRI on 7 quite big events. Nearly 700 energy experts and stakeholders were addressed. I would say during 1 year, the situation and awareness about SRI is becoming better, but slowly. We had 2 trainings arranged for experts and one to go. It's actually tomorrow. We have 24 SRI auditors trained, and we collectively assessed 29 buildings, and more than 15 are in progress right now. You can see the table of the average scores and the buildings types of the buildings we have assessed. Usually you can see it's residential and schools right now. My final slide is about the preliminary results and the first impressions about SRI. To be honest, the average score of SRI score of buildings is quite low, even for modern buildings. This is, I would say, bad for marketing reasons. So it's really bad to sell the SRI for other stakeholders, for the building owners and building maintainers. I think the demand response function is one of the cause of this. This function is quite rare in the Czech Republic, so third of the score is gone forever. And also we have found out that it is very important to have very precise technical translation into Czech language. Because Czech energy experts are not familiar with English terms and vocabulary. Regarding the how much time do we need, it's very time consuming, but especially for first buildings, then I would say it's much quicker. And sometimes we have a problem with determining the exact functional level and its area share. This is our first findings, but more to come because we have to assess quite a big amount of buildings. So we are working right now. That's all from the Czech Republic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michal. We have 17 more minutes, so we will try to rush it up a little bit. I will give the floor to our Greek partner from Entua, Alexandros, to present the Greece, who actually has 4 active EU projects on this topic. So I'm sure that they will give us a quite useful feedback. So please, Alexandros.
Yes, thank you, Marco. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the second SRI training webinar. So my name is Alexandros Xenakis from the National Technical University of Athens, and I will present you the framework of the SRI test phase in Greece. So to begin with, let's have a look at the SRI test phase at a glance. So the Institute of the Ministry of Environment and Energy has launched a test phase of the SRI with the support of the live projects SRI-ENACT, Easy SRI, Smart Square, and SRI to Market. These are the EU-related projects. The participating organizations from Greece are Singular Logic, the Decision Support System Lab from the NTUA, the Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy, the Informatics and Telematics Institute from the Center for Research and Technology, ELAS, and the ESZEB cluster. The duration of the SRI test phase in Greece will be 1 year. It started on June 2024 and will last until May 2025. So here we can see the main topics that were raised by the Greek Ministry of Environment and Energy during our discussions. So first, they need to know how will the whole procedure be financed and if the ministry needed to provide any kind of funding. Of course, at this test phase, there are no resources needed from the ministry, and its EU-related project will cover the needs for the SRI test phase, like the assessments, the auditors, etc. The next topic raised was how will the assessments be made and how will the auditors be certified. So the auditors will be certified in the context of the supporting EU-related projects. And regarding Greece, the assessments have been conducted by these certified auditors upon payment. Next, they asked us if after the test phase, if the ministry is in any way bound to apply this SRI policy horizontally. Of course, no, at this test phase, it is not binding in any way. The aim is just to understand the smartness level of the buildings in Greece and estimate if there is prospect for the integration of the SRI in national policy. Next, they need to know about the bureaucracy and what paperwork that does the minister need to prepare. The minister just needed to communicate via an official contact with the SRI platform and let them officially know that they want to launch the test phase in Greece. And this was accompanied with an analytical plan of how the procedure will run, like the activities, the time plan, etc. And last, they asked us about the methodology that will be used and if there are any tools developed that can be used. So as you may know, there is an official methodology by the European Commission available upon request in an Excel file. This methodology has been incorporated in a computational tool in the context of the SRI-ENACT project. The same has been done also for the other related SRI projects. And there are also some additional supporting tools for meta-analysis, like the decision support tool for the SRI-ENACT that provides tailored recommendations for the upgrades to the users. So, regarding the time plan of the SRI test phase in Greece, on November 2022, we had the start of the SRI cluster. Then on May 2023, we had the initial contact with the ministry and the early engagement. The last summer, on June 2024, we had the official launch of the SRI test phase and the signing of the MOU. Yes, by now we have completed the first round of assessments, and we are in a phase of consolidation and alignment between the participating EU projects. And the second pilot cycle is planned to last until the end of May 2025, which is the end of the test phase. And then we will have a consolidating activity report to present, along with the SRI policy and implementation roadmap. Next, we will see some tentative results. So based on the work plan, we expect over 70 buildings to be assessed by the end of the test phase. These assessments will be conducted for all types of buildings, like residential, commercial buildings, offices, schools, hotels, etc. So we plan to cover the whole range of the building types. And finally, the SRI assessments in Greece will cover a wide range throughout the Greek region. So to guarantee a comprehensive geographical coverage, as you can see in the right graph, most of the geographical regions in Greece will be covered in the course of the test phase. And as a conclusion, these are just some tentative results. In the next SRI webinars, we will present some more comprehensive results from the assessments. And so we have a more clear view, let's say, of the whole procedure. I think that's all from the Greek side. If you have any questions, of course, we are at your disposal. Thank you very much, Marco. Going to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandros. This was a great overview. We will move now to the next country, to Latvia. So I will give a floor to our partners, Riga Planning Region. So Ilgvars, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Marco. Hello, everyone. My name is Ilgvars, and just as Marco said, I work for Riga Planning Region, which is a regional development agency. Basically, we engage in different kinds of projects, and we cooperate with both the local and national institutions, just to introduce new ideas, and being part of SRI-ENACT is an absolutely a great and a new idea. And just to give you an example, this is the very first project in Latvia that focuses on SRI. And I'm really privileged to be coordinating this project, and because Latvia has not yet officially started the official test phase. So we had to invent something, and we actually did, because they are responsible for the same activities as other partners, whom I call front runners, like like Greece, like Austria, and so on, so on. I think there's only two partners. It's us and Romania, who have not yet started the official phase. Nonetheless, we do much the same as the other partners do. So the first thing to do was when the project was approved and we started the implementation was to visit the policymakers and myself and my colleagues. We just went to the national ministries and knocked at the door and said, hey, we've got a wonderful project. We've got funding for that. Why not start to cooperate despite we are not in the official test phase? And that was the beginning. And they are really willing to cooperate. And we've been doing that for 2 years now. And although they are a bit bureaucratic maybe, and they're not ready to start the official testing phase right now, I'm certain that they will quite soon. But we need some extra knowledge. We need more proofs, and we are on the right track, I think. And yes, and I already mentioned that we are not an energy agency, which means that we have to cooperate with both the national ministries. Actually, we have two national ministries: the Ministry of Economics, who's in charge of construction process, and also supervises the State Construction Bureau. And also we cooperate with the Ministry of Energy and Climate. That's I would call it the upper or the political level, but we are also responsible for close cooperation and during the implementation of our practical activities. And that's why we've established great partnership with the only energy agency here in Riga, the Riga Energy Agency, and all those 120 SRI assessments that we have conducted were done in close cooperation with Riga Energy Agency, because they care for their buildings. They will use SRI assessments as part of the whole package when they apply for funding, when they assess the energy efficiency of those buildings. And we think it's a right approach, because it allows us to connect somehow the local and the national levels, and we are in the middle. And so I might say that we have actually established the local ecosystem here in Latvia, but you will agree with me that these things take time. And I've been in similar situations years ago. And when we focused on energy communities, it took us 6 years from the pilot project to the real regulatory acts. So my estimate is that this time it will be something similar. All right, then. We come together quite often. All those ministries, also financial institutions, private companies. We discussed the first results. We've also discussed the methodology elaborated by our Greek colleagues, and we've made really good progress in this regard. And I also mentioned that the assessments have been done in cooperation with the municipality, and we've trained 12 in-house and external auditors who are able to conduct the assessments properly now, and on, of course, 120 assessment in different types of buildings, starting from commercial, but also schools, office buildings, kindergartens, and other public buildings. We believe in that we are doing the right thing, because the practical activities have to be done in parallel with the policy making. And yes, what we have discovered, because as most of you know, our project SRI-ENACT ends next year. And despite the fact that we've done and we will have done great things by then, there's a certain need to continue it, and maybe we simply must become part of another project, because we still need to convince the policymakers somehow, and also work with the local levels, because to my surprise, not so many people in Latvia are aware of the SRI approach as such. And And finally, the roadmap I already mentioned, we must capitalize on the Latvian SRI-ENACT pilot. Dissemination, we've been good at that this far, and it's also critically important to maintain or to keep the existing ecosystem that we've developed. And finally, for our organization being in charge of local and regional development plans, we believe that those plans need also to be updated, improved, just to ensure that this policy has real roots everywhere. So that this is what we expect to do, and well, the last slide is we'd be happy to continue our leadership role in Latvia. And, yeah, thank you.
Thank you a lot, Ilgar, for this nice overview of the Latvian case. We will move forward now from Latvia to the south, to Romania. So I will give the floor to our colleague Camelia to let us know more about the situation there. So please.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you very much. My name is Camelia Vasile. I'm coming from ISPE, the Romanian partner in SRI project. And today I will try to introduce to you to, let's say, the Romanian situation about SRI implementation and how the actions we took in order to, let's say, attract our government to launch an official test phase. And unfortunately, just like our partner in suffering, Latvia, we have not been very successful. And I will try to show some potential barriers that we have faced. So for start, I will very shortly introduce to you the main regulatory framework that is ruling the building sector in Romania. And sorry. So firstly, a law 372, which was adopted in 2005, is the main law that transposes the energy performance of buildings directive, and the other directive that modifies it. And according to this law, starting from January 2022, all new buildings should comply with nearly zero energy buildings requirements. Another important law is the one adopted in 2020, which updates the previous law that I mentioned, and which sets the minimum requirements for new buildings and existing buildings that are going under renovation at a large extent. This law also is the one that introduces the general framework for the SRI assessment. Next, please. And also an important piece of legislation is a government ordinance approved in 2022, which amends and supplements the energy efficiency law in Romania, and which, among other provisions, provides for, it emphasizes the installation of smart meters in buildings where existing meters need to be replaced, or when a building is going under major renovations. Now, a few words, next please, a few words about the, next slide, thank you. A few words about the Romanian SRI-ENACT pilot that we have developed within the project. This table shows you an indicative distribution of the 110 buildings that we have to assess during the project. These buildings are of non-residential type and both non-residential and residential type. Mostly non-residential type, about 80, which includes hospitals, schools, and municipal or governmental buildings. But of course, these are not limited only to this. We can have also office buildings, commercial buildings, and we can cover the whole range. According to the grant agreement, they should be existing buildings, but of course, not limited to this. We can have new buildings. And these assessments should be done by 11 energy experts. Now, having this SRI-ENACT pilot, we had undertaken a couple of actions to with the ministry in charge in Romania, which is the Ministry of Development. Next slide, please. Which is the Ministry of Development and Public Works and Administration. And we tried to, let's say, convince them to take the SRI pilot that we are developing within the project and, let's say, transform it into a national official test pilot. So we had a couple of a series of discussions and communications with the Ministry of Development. We presented them, we provided them comprehensive documentation and guidelines. We had presentations showing them the project objectives and main aspects and steps that are required in order to proceed with launching an official test phase. We have also explained them the fact that by doing so, they require no official or technical intervention from the ministry, but they can also have only benefits by gathering valuable data and insights regarding sustainable building practices. We responded and offered consultation to all the questions and concerns that they addressed, and also trying to simplify the ministry's role. We provided the necessary information needed for notifying the European Commission about the initiation of a national test phase. Next, please. However, despite all our efforts, the ministry did not go further with this action. So we tried to identify what could have been the potential barriers that might have led to this situation. So one potential barrier can be the competing administrative deadlines. We all know that ministries have often they need to manage simultaneously multiple initiatives. So the ministry might have prioritized more pressing national challenges. On the other hand, despite its long-term benefits, an SRI test phase might not have aligned with the ministry's ongoing projects or short-term strategic objectives. Also, I remember that during the discussions with them, with the ministry's representatives, we had some, no, we didn't have, there were some discussions that there was some planned changes within the ministry staff. So lack of capacities, of personnel capacity could have been another potential barrier. Next, please. Even though for this phase, the SRI pilot did not require any initial funding from the ministry, probably there could be concerns about potential subsequent financial commitments in order to scale the SRI implementation. And last but not least, and I believe that this could be a very important barrier, potential barrier, is the fact that 2024 is an election year in Romania. So ministries may delay new initiatives if a change in government or other key leadership roles is expected. So we believe that anticipation of a possible change at the level of a minister or other key officials could have stalled the decision-making within the ministry. As final conclusions, thank you. As final conclusions, we can all agree that an SRI test pilot is a transformative step towards smarter and greener buildings. And we have one recommendation to make to our ministry as a final conclusion, and this is that once the elections and political uncertainty is over, the ministry should re-evaluate the importance of implementing the SRI in the Romanian building sector, should initiate consultations with building stakeholders in order to gain insights regarding potential national level implementation barriers and opportunities, and in support for their future efforts, the ministry could leverage the valuable outcomes from the SRI-ENACT projects, which are the assessment toolkit and the training package, and use them as a robust starting point for designing and launching a future test pilot. Thank you very much. This would be all from Romania.
Thank you, Camelia, for the overview in Romania. Now we are moving forward to the last country, which is Spain. So I will give to Jaime from Veolia the floor to present us the situation there.
Thank you, Marco. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime. I work for Veolia, and I will give you a brief overview of the context in Spain. So, next slide, please. The SRI test phase in Spain was launched by the Ministry for the Ecological Transition and the Demographic Challenge, and the IDAE, which is the Institute for the Diversification and Saving of Energy. And there are 3 live projects involved with the Spanish partners, and these are ECSRI, SRI-ENACT, and SRI-to-Market, who is actually leading this test phase in Spain. And regarding the lifetime, it began in May 2023 with the launch from the ministry, and it will last until July 2025 with a final report to the European Commission. And next slide, please. So here I show you a map of the entities that are related with this test phase in Spain that actually form what we call the National Working Group. And it's divided into 3 main levels. First, we have the Coordination Committee, then the Involved Agents, and the Informed Agents. Next slide, please. The Coordination Committee is formed by the Ministry, who is actually leading this test phase, and the IDAE, who is supporting them, and they have the technical support of CENER and Innovatic, who are coordinating the SRI-to-Market project. And they are in charge of the definition of the scope of this test phase and the definition of the requirements. They will also carry out the evaluation of buildings, and they will be responsible for the conclusion and the final reporting to the Commission. Next slide, please. Then we have the involved agents, who are entities with high level of commitment with this test phase. In this case, we have companies and entities who are experts in energy evaluation of buildings, and also Spanish entities that are involved in the different SRI live projects. And here you can find companies as Veolia or Setigas or the University of Zaragoza and many others. In total, there are 8 entities here. We also have to develop evaluations, and we will evaluate also the appropriateness of the default methodology to the Spanish context. In the next slide, we have the informed agents, and these are relevant agents, and similarly to the involved agents, these will also evaluate the appropriateness of the methodology for our context. But the main difference is that they are not involved in the case studies, so they will not carry out any evaluation of buildings due to the lack of efforts or any other reason. And in the last slide, I show you some preliminary results for our project. Please take into account that these are only for SRI-ENACT project. We have evaluated 12 buildings so far. 11 of them are residential. And we have a pretty high preliminary SRI scores. The average is around 35 and the maximum is 48.9. These scores are pretty high compared to what other countries what other countries are getting, but this is mainly because the sample is very low. And when we reach our goal of 250 buildings, it will be more similar to other countries. And the same with the map on your right, you can see that all the points are really concentrated, and the idea when we reach our final goal of 250 buildings is that it will be more diverse through all the country. And this is pretty much it for the Spanish case. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime, for the overview of the last country. So now we are in the last phase, last part of the Q&A questions. So I can see that in the questions someone asked if this EPBD proposal that the SRI should be mandatory in 2027 for larger buildings, if there is the update of that will be actually implemented, or even right now at this moment we know that it will be postponed to a year later. I can only comment from the side of what our ministry told us is that right now we conceptualized this approach that with the presumption that it will be actually done in 2027, meaning that from the June 2027, it will be mandatory, and until then all the legislation on our national level should be implemented, but maybe some of other partners have more information. That is the feedback from our last meeting with the relevant ministry. So if there are no answers from the partners, I don't know if there are any other questions. I cannot see them. So we will maybe wait a few seconds to see if someone will have the question. I guess there are no more questions, so I will wrap up. I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank to our presenters to giving us the national context in each of the pilot country, and I would like to invite you to register and to participate in our next webinar that will take place on January 23rd of the next year. But you can find all the information on our official websites and on the websites of our partners. So keep tracking the informations, and we hope that we will see you on our next webinar when we will give more insights about the assessments. So until then, more informations and analysis will be gathered, and we will also present decision support tool, which is a very interesting tool to give you, which gives the opportunity to how to improve the SRI score in each building. That would be all for today. Thank you once again for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.